This is 50 years later.
Thank you so much, Canon. My name is Robert Ariaka, and we are privileged to have your time this evening. We want to ask you just particularly about the book you have written. Can you give us a little introduction of who Canon Isaac is and what this book is about?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ariaka. The book, as you said, it is my life. It is the story of my life, and it extends a little bit to my great-grandfather, and then my father, my grandfather, my father, and then when I was born, and how I was born, and the challenges that I went through, and when I got married. The story of my marriage is another one which I really want to recommend every young man or woman reads, because many times when people say, because of you I don't sleep, because of you I don't eat food, people laugh it off, but I experienced that, because when I talked to my father, you'll get it all in the book, but let me give you a briefly. When I talked to my father that I'd found a lady whom I want to marry, he said, well, go ahead. And that was all what he told me. And when my father-in-law said, yes, come, bring the animals, or whatever. And where did I get the animals? Nowhere. One time I asked a very rich Aringa man who was living in Ivora, and I asked him, please, could you give me, I want to marry, could you give me some cows? I'll pay you. The man looked at me and said, cows, I don't have that I can give you. But take courage. I didn't like the man because I didn't go to him for Dralesiopo. I wanted him to give me animals. And so when I didn't get those animals, actually I was annoyed with him. So what happened was, for 7 good days, I didn't sleep. I tried to close my eyes, I could not sleep. I tried to, whatever, I could not. Now, then I came to the hospital, a rural hospital, a young doctor, a medical assistant, not a doctor. I asked him, please give me sleeping tablets. I want to sleep. The man looked at me, he said, are you sick? I told him, I'm not sick. Now, then, what is your problem? I did not want to tell him that it was a problem of getting a wife. No, I didn't. So, I said, all what I need today is medicine to sleep. Then he looked at me, he said, my friend, I was about 24 years old. He said, you are too young to start to sleep under the influence of medicine or drugs. So you go and solve the problem. But did I have the solution to my problem? I didn't. So, but I was now coming from the hospital, former Court Hall, or Post Office Road, around there. I just was riding bicycle and praying. Prayed to God. I said, God, help me today, give me sleep. If I'm going to marry my wife, this woman, as my wife, then let me sleep. That will be a sign that you have answered my question, my prayer. Then I went home, and okay, I was teaching. So I went to class up to evening. I came home, I took a bath. 8 p.m. sleep came. From that time up to today, I have not fallen asleep. Actually, the following day, I went to my girlfriend. I told her, I'm going to marry you. She said, have you got the animals now? I said, no. But how do you know? God has told me. I slept soundly that time. And indeed, God showed other ways. I don't want to take the time to talk about the marriage, but it's one of the challenges today many young people face, that there are problems, they can't sleep, they go to drugs, they go to drinks, but I didn't go to drinks. I went to God. So that is why the book, many other stories of my life are in the book. That's why the title of the book is called Against All Odds. So why have I written this book? I've written the book first and foremost to tell my story for my children and my children, my grandchildren. And I've also written this story about my life so that my family, my father is called Jaffer Lomodi, the Lomodi family may know where we come from. Thirdly, the young people who are facing challenges, who are struggling, who are giving up hope. And I've said, no, don't give hope. Now, how I grew, here I am, Isaac Anguyo, having head or chairing a meeting in London of an organization called Mica Global. I was the chair of the board. Here I am. How could I reach there? How? And here I am going to Singapore. Here I am, I'm going to Switzerland and other places. And then heading ministry called Here's Life and Voice of Life. So I've come through these challenges. And the book, Against All Odds, has got sun setting and the background. This sun setting shows my days are much better. And it was my mother, as we were struggling, having less food, having sleepless nights when it was raining. She would always say, my children, don't worry. God will give you better things in future. She spoke positivity into my life, into our lives. And therefore I'm saying, the sun is setting when I'm smiling, when I'm happy, against all odds. So that is briefly what I would say. The book is 20 chapters, 219 pages with some very interesting photographs at the end. For example, the photographs begin with this lady, this woman, carrying brewing pot and wearing leaves. And that is, this type of leaves were what we used to go and harvest for our mothers in 1940s. I was born around 1947. So early 50s, our women were wearing leaves. And this is, the pictures begin with this. Then it goes on to show my school life and then my garden, my marriage life, and also my friends like Bishop Henry Rombi, whom we studied together with. We went to Budo. This is one of the photographs. And you can't believe this is Bishop Henry, the former Archbishop of Church of Uganda. So it's a book that contains a lot within the 219 pages. It's a book I want to recommend to all young people. Thank you.
Thanks so much about the background, why you've written this book. Just a quick one. The motivational factor behind this book and key highlights that you think can be picked. I know it takes time for one to read, but you could give us that, striking part of this book, which can change one's life.
Well, I would call the book as a lot of turning points. I have indicated my turning points. The first turning point was when I was not there. The present clan I have, actually I have two clans. There is one clan called Majuru, that was my biological clan. And the Majuru live in Obongi. And then the clan that I belong to is called Kerala, that is in Yumbe. And how did I come? My grandfather was one of those who was captured in a war. This war which was fought between the Majoro and the Kerala. And they went, the Kerala, with their allies. They defeated the Rile and the Majoro badly, and they scattered people. There were bodies all over. And my grandfather, called Lomodi, he ran to hide. And his hiding, he thought he was safe, but he wasn't. So Nimbe, the Kerala man, came as they were now retreating, saw in a bush this young Majoro hiding. Then he said, "Come out." And my grandfather thought that was his end. But he said, "No, you are not going to die. I don't have male children. I'm going to take you and you're going to be my son. You will help me." That was a positive speech or talk into my grandfather's life. And that was one turning point. Then another turning point was, unfortunately, my father got married. He got married to my mother. My mother was the first wife, and my father had other wives. One of them led him to drinking alcohol. He used not, he was very hardworking. Now, this alcohol, which changed my father's mind, literally became very, very poor. In fact, my life was, my ribs could be seen, described in the book. And in the school when I went, when I was 12 years old in primary school, they used to call me that my blood was in the teeth, because my teeth were too big to be closed by my lips. And so, Arisigai, but I persisted. I didn't die. Then, third turning point was when I was in junior, what you call junior, but that was transition from junior to now primary P7, but I was in P8, junior 2. And junior 1, I passed very well. And another thing which many young people today, many people are talking about hunger, that our children don't do very well because of not feeding. I used to laugh at them. I laugh at them because when I grew, I had at times 1 meal a day. At times you don't even get that 1 meal. When I went to school, I would walk 5 miles to the school. Then no lunch, no breakfast. But I managed to pass very well. Then when I told my father that I had passed very well, he just said, "Sorry, you can't go next year to P8. We have to go and dig." Well, I said, "What more?" I decided to say that that is enough for me. But one man, a Christian, who didn't know my family, not related, when he heard of my story from me, he said, "Come, I'll pay your school fees." He picked me. He adopted me, kind of. And I called him my guardian. And his photograph is also here in the book. This smiling man is Kezikia Yube. Comes from Gimere, that's in K area. But for me, I'm here in Kerala. And a Muslim by that time. So he picks me and he educates me. And that was a link he put between primary, teachers college. Later I progressed on my own to university and later founding Yes Life. So there have been turning points in my life. Then the marriage that I described. And so then near deaths. Remember during the liberation, I call it liberation war, and I almost got killed. My family, I take them to Logri. I was here in Moni.
Which year was that?
Okay, that was in 1980. And I was going to take things for my children in Chiaba, Logri there. And so on the way, I think around the Opia, I found well-armed, one lone soldier. And I was riding this, what you call phonics bicycle, new. The man stops me. And he was looking at me, looking at the bicycle. I had the chicken, I had the granates tied. He was looking at me, looking at these things, and I was just waiting. My eyes were going wherever he was looking. I was also looking at that. And so he finally asked me, "Are the soldiers good to you?" How would I answer that question? I said, yes. So far, I haven't found any bad soldier. And then he said, go. He didn't take my bicycle, he didn't take the food, he didn't take the chicken, nor did he take my life. And that was another turning point. And later when I founded Here's Life, I used to travel a lot. And one time I was in New York with some friends. We were going to see the Statue of Liberty. And then we stopped them, and it was traffic light. We stopped. Then that moment, they said there was no vehicle was coming, but they stood at some distance. Then I decided to cross. At that very time, the vehicles started to come. How I leaped from one end of the road, and these are not one lane roads. How I leaped over to safety. My horse was just, they almost got frozen. And I thought that was near death. Why did God leave me? Maybe for a purpose. So the turning points, then our children coming in and starting the ministry called Here's Life, out of which Voice of Life came. So I see my life like a film moving from past. That is the bit I would want to say. It is the turning points which are in the books.
Okay. If you look at many people in West Nile have, largely benefited from one thing you started, Voice of Life. Yes, which started as, you started Here's Life, but Voice of Life came out of it. And we used to have Voice of Life and Radio Paid, and then, but Voice of Life in the Greater Arua was one radio you started. And it has over the years changed the different lives, touched different people. What was your motivational factor, and has this featured in your book, because it has continued to change more lives?
Oh, that's very good. Mr. Areka, I like that question. Now, I'll go back a little bit. I trained as a tutor from Makerere University, graduated and with the diploma in education in 1986. Now, I then came back to teach in Moon Teachers College. And during this time, even earlier, I joined the Scripture Union. I was working in Scripture Union. I liked my time very, very much. Now, what happened was, I was thinking about my people in Iringa. And they went into exile. Actually, literally, Iringa was wilderness. I remember those early days when I went to Iringa. You'd find a lot of sassaflies. And one time I went with one missionary friend, and he was saying, Isaac, what you call roads are not really roads. Because there were no roads, but vehicle would dodge. Now, these people, when they started to come back, their life was miserable. Both spiritual life and physical life. And here I am, teaching in the morning, enjoying my life, happy time. Now, some of you who are Bible readers, you know Nehemiah, when he was in exile in Babylon, he was reported that the walls of Jerusalem were burnt. I mean the doors. The walls were broken. And that moved Nehemiah. I think I was moved like that. And one time, I found a remnant of Christians in my church called Eleke, Church of Uganda. They asked me to preach. And this verse from the Bible, the hand of the Lord is on me to bring, I'm not quoting the exact verse, but this is what Jesus quoted. And during that time, I was crying. The whole church was crying. I felt it. I said, no, I think something must be done. Why should I be enjoying life at money as a tutor? No, I think something must be done. So, but what can I do? I'm not a pastor. I'm not a clergy. I'm just a classroom teacher. So around 1986, there was a big conference organized in Amsterdam. And I was invited. I don't know who gave my name there. I was invited for this conference. And this was exciting. And that was my first visit to outside Uganda. And here I was. They were welcoming us who had gone for this conference. And I think I just, nothing but smiles. And there was a lady welcoming. She said, oh, what a beautiful set of teeth. I'd never known that my teeth were beautiful. But I just said, well, thank God. Anyway, during that conference, I just got a vision that I needed to do something for my people there. And so teaching in a teacher's college, I lost interest 100% completely. But what can I do? So a missionary called Mark Blair introduced me to Daystar University. I didn't want to go to Mukono. I didn't want to become a pastor. Not that the work of being a pastor is bad, no, it is good. But that was not my desire. So he told me, no, there is a liberal college in Nairobi called Daystar. Why don't you go there? So he gave me forms. I filled them. I was admitted. And while in the college, I said, how can I reach my people? First, they're poor. Second, they're illiterate. And most of them are illiterate. So this made me do 2 courses. Communications and community development. Communication as major. And and I specialized more in cassette ministry. Well, these days you have very many digital things, but during our time we would record on cassettes and distribute this. And that is what I wanted to do. I started when I came in his life. I wanted to build a big cassette studio where I would produce cassettes and where we would distribute these cassettes in the churches. In fact, when I started to do that, because there were these cassette players which you crank. And they didn't need battery. Just you put the cassette and you crank. And when I started to write the proposal and the concept paper which I would share with the people. So here is this German man, tall, called Kurt Zander. He comes and they'd just been chased out of Congo. And he says, Isaac, can we start a radio station with you? And yet I specialized in radio in Daystar University for 4 years. And here I am, somebody. He said, let us start a radio station. I say, this is the best for me. So it was 1997 when we started the radio programs, and that was how Voice of Life came. It came out of my desire to reach my people with the recorded. But where did I get convinced that recorded messages would work? We were doing in communication, we studied Ayatollah Khomeini, his revolution. Ayatollah Khomeini was in exile. While in exile, he was producing programs and sending them out to Iran, and people would listen to him. So the day he came, he was not a stranger. He was now with people. But now I saw radio was now much better than cassette, because to reach many more people. So I abandoned the idea of cassette production, and that was how the radio continued. So motivation, reaching my people. But of course, my people were not only now the Aringa. My people became with the West Nile people, and those even in Sudan and the West Eastern DRC.
You already have a committee that's going to launch this book. Officially, you will launch it to the public.
Yes.
And what are your expectations in this launch? Who are you reaching out to in terms of your audience, and also our people? You know, the white man says if you want to hide information, put them in written. Many times have these books, they don't read them. What's your advice to them?
Well, that's a very good question too. It was actually one of the things that hindered my writing books. Writing from 2010, and a friend of mine, a German lady, he just said, Isaac, I think it's high time you start writing your own story. You write books. But I just was telling her, I don't want to write any book. One will not have readers. Our people are very poor readers. They will not buy the books. So then in 2018, when we had the centenary celebrations for Church of Uganda, and they asked me to be the chairman. And one of the things we did was to produce a book. And then this book was also read by this friend of mine. And also my man called Johnny Hayden, who helped me to write the book, editing it and publishing it. He's a British man, an Englishman. He too was also saying, Isaac, could you write a book? And the same fear, no, who are going to read this book? They may not read it. So why write? And so it comes 2023, 24. Here is this man called Mr. Datibi Deleba Daniel. He says, no, Isaac, I think you have some ideas. Why don't you write a book? Now, you have my friend Birgit Klump from Germany, Johnny Hayden from England, and here is this Lugara man, Mr. Datibi Deleba Daniel, saying the same thing. Then I said, okay, let him pray about it. And so last year, I talked to Mr. Datibi. I said, well, I think I want to start writing the book. So he sold to me 2 books. One he gave me free only, self-publishing. And I read those books all. And then I read Dr. Aduko's autobiography called Otoko. I don't know whether you've read it.
I have a copy.
I read that book from page to page. Then I got motivated. I said, I think I could. Then I shared, there is this lady, Kili Awadifo, who is, I wrote to her, I said, I really want to write a book, but who are going to buy the book? Will there really be a market? She said, go ahead, you will have a market. So, the first thing is, how can I start? Where do I start? Now, I decided to go to artificial intelligence. That is some app which is so good. But you need to tell them what exactly you want. You need to ask the right questions. Because one time I asked you, who are you, Mr. Artificial Intelligence? Said, I'm not a human being. I don't have a name. I only help people answer their questions. So I went to this. I described myself to them, who I am, and whom I got married to, and the challenges I had. Now I want to write a book. How can I go about it? Then the first thing said, you need to have an outline. They said, then give me. And they gave me a nice outline. And I shared that outline with Mr. Datibi Deliver, Daniel. And it was from there we started. So I started from right, and the good thing is when you reach my age, I'm now 78 this year. When you reach my age, you remember the past more than the present. And that's why if I left this pen in my bedroom, it will take hours for me to find it. I'll not know where my pen is. But I remembered everything from childhood. So when I started to write, and the stories that were told to me about my grandfather, because I lived with him for a very short time, I didn't get his stories. So I started to remember my past. And even when my father and I went for hunting, and the first time I saw a big elephant, just close range. That was fearful. But you'll get it all in the book.
Okay, finally, how many copies do you already have? That
We have
as you're going to launch, maybe people who come will have enough copies. And how much are you selling them?
Okay, that's good. We have 200 copies. My son, Joel, sponsored 100 printing. Then my wife and I got also 100 printed. 200. Now, as we're talking now, we have been doing what we call pre-selling. We have sold almost over 40. And that is what has also excited me. Many people, when we opened the platform about the book, and many said, yes, this is what went. And a friend of mine, Mr. Mundoga, Engineer Mundoga, found me in town. Said, Isaac, I hear you've written a book. I said, yes, my autobiography. Said, I think you'll also help me. I want to write one. And so those comments, I got encouraged. So we have already started to sell. And for example, the first person who really bought a book from me was Bishop Henry Rombi. He bought 2 copies. He hasn't received the books, but he paid. And on and on, and our daughter May and the Zoo money is in charge of receiving people are paying through mobile money. So how much is the book? Now this is 219 page book, and we are only selling it at 50,000. Why that price? Because we really want to get many people to be able to get the copy and read it. So on launch time, we'll start first by giving books to people who have already paid. Then those who will come pay. Then we're also going to produce more. If these 200 go all on the launch day, we'll be able to print more within a very short time. Yeah.
Okay. Where will the launch be? And
well, it will be at Lesuba Hotel. Lesuba Hotel is here in the heart of Arua town, Arua city, and a place called Anyafio, actually senior quarters. So you can't get lost. Opposite, you branch from the golf course, and if you know Golden Courts, it is just after Golden Courts, the same area with Golden Courts.
Which day, what time?
Well, that will be on Saturday, May 10th, beginning from 3 p.m. And we begin first with, there are quite a number of people who have asked us if they could give comments, if they could give remarks, if they could give tribute. And there is one who wrote a 2-page tribute. And he will also be able to, when he comes, he'll be able to give that. And they will give comments. And well, another thing which the book contains is a unique autobiography in that the people whose lives have impacted and who have impacted my life, some of them have written their contributions inside. So the book that I'm holding in my hand is not only my work, it is the work of the people whom I have impacted and who have also impacted my life. And one example is my great friend, Jonathan Dilliger, and to be sincere, when I read his contribution, I cried. I cried because he really spoke in my heart. And so that is it. That is our book.
Okay.
Against all odds. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm called Isaac Jaffer Anguyo. The church has given me a title called Canon. Canon is not the ordained. We have in the Anglican Church 2 canons. One is ordained canon, reverend canon, then there is lay canon. I'm in that group called Canon. And I was born around 1947. It is interesting for my first passport does not carry date. It only carries year, 1947. I don't know when exactly I was born, but one of my uncles told me I was born around 1947. So which month, date, I don't know. But when the computer came in, when I wrote 1947, it just said, no, you needed to give date. So I've put 1st January 1947 as my date. My father is called Jaffer Lomodi from Kerala. As I told you earlier, I have 2 clans. Majuru, the biological clan, and then Kerala adopted clan. My mother is called Sura Anjiku from Mocha, around Mount Midigo, and so we lived in that area. So when did I go to school? The first school I went to school is Kolwa, that is Islamic village school, and in that I stayed in that for about some years until I was 12 years old when I went to Church of Uganda Primary School. That was at Eleke. And at Eleke, I studied there for 6 years. 6 years. And at first, I was doing excellently well. Passing number 1, number 2. Then, but as things became difficult, and I remember P6, I was already maturing. And if I started primary 1, 12 years old, and then when I'm in P6, and that's about, how many years would that be?
18.
Yeah, almost 18. Now, here I am. Now, the clothes that I wore were tatters. And I remember one time when they were giving holidays in terms, they would invite people from the government and parents and so on. The parents would sit in front with these big people, then pupils would sit down. And I was called to come and receive my gift. I came, and as I approached the headmaster and received my gift, now here I am, bare buttocks. Could I turn the buttocks towards this guest? No way. So I decided to move backwards. So until I reached where I was sitting. So those challenges, my grades started to fall down. But then when I went to Jina, this was a Muslim primary school called Gaya, and which was about 5 or 6 miles from our home. And there, at least I had better clothes. And I told you, I didn't care about eating. I wanted to be somebody. And P7, top class. P8, junior 2, top class. I came to college, 1967, and in Nairobi Teachers College, trained as a teacher. From year 1 up to year 4, nobody passed ahead of me, even term examinations. It was like when you're running a race. The top one is up there, the rest are, and that was my life.
Okay. College, university?
Well, yeah, that's all right. Then I enrolled for private studies to sit my O-level. I sat actually privately at Arua Public Secondary School. So, but there is a school, a tutorial college called Rapid, I don't know whether they are still there, Rapid Reserves College. This was in England. And you would pay money through the post office. They send you courses. I studied my O-level at home and I passed. Then I went to Boalasi, that is in Mbale, for grade 3. After grade 3, I came back to teach in demonstration school. Those days, they would not place anybody other than sharp, bright teachers. Good enough, I was one of them. So when I came back from Boalasi, I was teaching P7. They needed 1987, no, I think 1989, around there, after the overthrow, they needed some tutors to train them for mathematics and science. They didn't call people for interview. They just said, select good teachers. So I was selected to go to Makerere University. That was how I got my diploma. Diploma in teacher education for 3 years. And then I came, and then you follow there my story of living, teaching in order to develop ministry for reaching the Aringa.
Okay.
The word of God and development.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
The university in Nairobi?
Yes, called Daystar University.
Which year was that?
That was 1987.
Okay.
Yeah, 1986, 87. I went for this conference of Billy Graham in 1986. Then that was when I lost interest. So 1987 up to 1990, I was in Daystar. And I also came top. And that was a temptation for me because the college wanted to retain me to remain in the college, to take communications. Yeah. And, the picture, there is one picture here, which, Now I'm with my communication teacher here, and he's called Gilbert Okronko, and I'm holding a trophy And this was true for being the best student in that year. We were about 42, and I came top in that class. Yeah.
Okay.
What we call Dean's Award.
Okay. Thank you so much, Canon.
Okay, God bless you.
Bless you.
But most goes to you.